Well, good evening to you folks. It is good to see you and good to be seen by you. Welcome to the show. I, of course, am the one, and as far as anybody knows, only Bill Sylvie, aka the Dungeon Delver, and it's really good to be here this evening. I know we're kind of doing sort of an earlier evening thing, but that's okay. That's awesome. Jack Photon, hey, I got some stuff in the mail from you today, my friend. Thank you very much. We're going to do a mail call on Monday and crack those boxes open and have a look at them. Dungeon Minister, good to see you. Pre-dinner delving, that's right, absolutely. Death Angels, it's 8 p.m. somewhere, Greenwich Mean Time, something like that, right? But anyway, regardless of when this is, of course, this live stream is brought to you by our friends at Owlbear Games. Owlbear makes the kind of adventures that they'd like to play, whether it's for 5th edition, for Castles and Crusades, or for the OSR Old School is in play at the table with Owlbear Games. So definitely go and check them out on their website, hellabardgames.com, or you can find them straight over on DriveThru RPG. That's hellabardgames.com. Now, if you're just stopping by for the first time, if you don't know what it is we do, folks, 5 nights a week, I like to bring folks a little bit of live stream, a little bit of tabletop RPG news, views, rants, bants, all kinds of fun stuff. But occasionally, we are blessed enough to have a guest, and we have a great one for you tonight. Now, if you're a fan of this show, if you're not already a fan of this show, by the way, please do consider clicking that subscribe button and the bell icon for notifications. It really helps out. And if you're catching this video after the live stream, never fear, it will stay up for your enjoyment. Leave us a comment down below and give the video a thumbs up if you like it, and tell us what you liked about it. Now, tonight, we have a great guest because, again, if you've been a fan of this show now for a long time, of course, one of the highlights really of the show, I honestly think it's probably why most of you stick around for the entire show, is we have some great music on the show. Of course, we open with just a little snippet of Summer Mountains from our friends over at Bards of Greyhawk, but we close the show out with a wonderful tune, Owlbear, and that, of course, is composed and performed by Bob Antone, who is joining us tonight, and I'm pretty excited about that. Bob speaks D&D. All right, never fear. Bob's not just a talented musician and artist. He speaks Dungeons and Dragons. So in just a minute, we're gonna bring Bob in, and we're gonna talk about spooks and cryptids, and we're gonna throw some D&D monsters at him and see if he's got a clue in on some background for those monsters. And of course, we're gonna talk to Bob about him. Okay, it's not just about pretend monsters on graph paper. But I've rambled enough, if you guys can believe that. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome in our guest. He is an artist, a performer, and an all-around swell guy. Everybody put your hands together for Bob Antone. Bob, it's good to see most of you.
Hey!
Hey!
How are you? How's it going?
Back to the show. It's going well. It's going pretty good. I'm down here in America's dangly bits, just enjoying the fall.
Right on.
You're up there where you get some actual color in those leaves, right? That's not just green.
Yes, indeed. And I got my Creep Show shirt on. I like Creep Show.
I love it. Creep Show. That's a heck of a fun movie. Yeah. So yeah, that's a good one. Of course, so many great little bits by King and Dante and so much good stuff in that movie. And I have never ever been afraid to take the life raft sequence with a horrible black blob and throw it into a D&D game, because of course we have black puddings and gray oozes and jellies and all sorts of horrible stuff to unleash on the unsuspecting player. But before we get too deep in the weeds, Bob, tell us a little bit about yourself for our audience members who may not know you. Let's get some background. Go ahead. It's all you.
Absolutely, yeah. So I come from a family of storytellers and musicians and artists. My grandparents, my mom and dad, my uncles, aunts, always told stories. I grew up with it. So for a long time, I have been collecting, and we have been collecting folk tales and ghost stories, Bigfoot, cryptids, unsolved mysteries. I was a huge fan of Unsolved Mysteries, the show, of course. Twin Peaks came to town in the late 80s to my town here in North Bend, Washington. We're in the Snoqualmie Valley. So there's a large influence of Twin Peaks culture, if anyone's familiar with that TV show or the film Fire Walk with Me. So yeah, we live here at the base of Mount Si, about 7 minutes away from Snoqualmie Falls is our location. So yeah.
Excellent. So and now I actually, let's see, there's Jeremy, there's my buddy Jeff, who I've been friends with longer than I haven't. I have some friends down there considerably south of you, but Portland. I actually know a good number of people from the PNW, and there's some beautiful vistas up there out in your neck of the woods.
It's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. I got up there in 94. Which you don't, when you're young, you think about 14 years is a really huge, long time. But that was just a decade and less than a half after St. Helens blew, and myself and Jeff and a friend of his were driving up in that part of the country, and the raw, I think, what was it Neil Armstrong said when he stepped on the moon? Magnificent devastation.
That was incredible time. Yep.
It was 94 up there. It was absolutely beautiful, because everything had many seasons to come back, but you could still see the felled trees and the thrown boulders here and again, and it's truly a beautiful part of the country, and of course a burgeoning arts scene up there around where you are, and you're a part of that now. So you say it's lineal with you. You come from a family of artists and musicians, yeah?
Yes, and storytellers. So I have a lot of wood carvers in the family.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's more like just casual storytelling, but in a traditional way. And I was going to mention, you talked about the eruption. Now, there is a cryptid here that is connected to that eruption. Now, if you look this up, there's something called the bat squatch.
The bat squatch, okay.
Yes, so part bat and part Sasquatch. And literally, there are stories, there are encounters. There's probably 5 or 6 that you can find online. There's more than 5 or 6, but you can trace about 5 or 6 encounters, different people who did not know each other. And these encounters all happened after Mount St. Helens blew. And it's very, very strange, but very fun. There's even a beer. You can get a Bat Squatch beer. I think it's an IPA. I'm not quite sure, but it's very fun. But it's based on actual encounters. People are very serious when they say that they encountered this creature. Very tall, covered in kind of a bluish hair, looks like a Sasquatch, but has bat wings and is able to fly. That might remind you of the Mothman, back in West Virginia area. So, yeah.
So for those of you who are curious, okay, so I've got let me see here if I can share a screen here. Let's. It's what I love about StreamYard. Their user interface is so easy to navigate. I only have to click 10 things to get a screen shared. But I kid them. But yeah, Bat Squatch of Mount St. Helens explores Northwest legends. So you guys can check that out. And Bob, we are an audience of D&D nerds. I promise you right now, there are pencils and keyboards frantically scribbling and typing away to stat bad boy up. So rest assured, this is going to this is going to a good cause. I'm gonna stick that URL for those of you that want to check that out. That's over on Oregon Live, but. Hey, don't let those Oregoners steal your Bat Squatch, Bob. That's a St. Helens thing. So the last time you were on and we talked about we talked about storytelling and art creation. I don't think we really got too deep into the storied career of Bob. So take us back a little bit. When did you start? I mean, all of us, of course, as kids, pencil, crayons, Play-Doh, what have you. But I guess as a professional artist, if we can put those two terms together, when did you begin that? When did that become your trade?
Oh, yeah, I've been creating art since I was a child. Even actually, right here where I'm sitting, I remember whittling when I was like 6 and 7 with a little pocket knife right here where I'm sitting.
Wow.
So that was a long time ago. But yeah, my uncle would give me a block of wood, and I'd have a little pocket knife, and I would just start whittling. And yeah, and so I've been carving on this property, off and on my entire life. I didn't live here my entire life, but left and then came back here. This was my grandparents' house. Lots of art making on this property. So I spent time with different uncles, but I also spent time with other carvers who taught me taught me different skills in a traditional way. So yeah, just since I was a kid, but I've always been obsessed with the occult, ghost stories, the dark side of humanity, the mysterious side, the unsolved mysteries. I've always been obsessed with that. That has to do with, my grandfather specifically. I sat in this living room and I would listen to hours and hours of him tell stories. Some of them were encounters with like mysterious beings. He would his life would be saved suddenly by something he called a guardian angel. These invisible beings would show up out of nowhere and save his life. So he would tell me these stories of like UFO sightings, UFO encounters. I grew up with it, and there's Sasquatch everywhere around us here. There's Bigfoot stories. I mean, that's just part of our culture. So it naturally makes it into the artwork, whether it be a song, whether it be a sculpture, a carving, a painting. I love folk tales, and I love to document things that are obscure, are strange, are weird, are fringe, and record them for all time. If you make a sculpture of something, say a cryptid or a folk tale, that folk tale lives forever. It can live for a long time. And then you back that up with written work. We write down in a journal every single day. We write down like a diary. So we keep record of every day, every single day, what we do. Some days are more interesting than others. Some days somebody comes to our house who's possessed by demons, and other days we are just, regular day, just eating lunch and going about our business. But we write down everything. And so you could ask me a question and I could say, oh, let me look that up. And I can go back, 5 years ago to a specific date, and I can give you my whereabouts. I can tell you what my wife and I were doing. And you can use that for material, just unending material, paintings, drawings, creativity. It's like a fuel that just keeps burning. You can borrow from yourself, basically, by keeping a journal. You borrow from your own records and your own creative life and your outlet. So there you go.
Well, that is wonderful. And, I think that's one of the things that dovetails so nicely is the tradition of storytelling, with tabletop role-playing games. Because, you take the dice and pencils and graph paper and miniatures away, and what are we doing but sitting around and telling a story? Telling a story. Everyone is putting a piece of their own legendarum in there, and that can lead to such amazing whether it's at the table or you take it beyond. You look at now I know you're a huge fan of my show and you watch it all the time, so I don't have to tell you, but for the other folks in the audience, it leads to some amazing art. You look at the guys who created art for Dungeons and Dragons. There's Tracy Lesh is a fantastic artist, a friend of mine who worked for TSR back in the day. But all of those guys, they were motivated first by tales. They were creating they were creating fantastic art, and then they kind of got caught up in the orbit if you will, of working for TSR Games in at the inception of Dungeons and Dragons, and that is more campfire stories, for lack of a better term. That is more sitting around on the front porch on a summer night and talking about things that go bump in the dark out there. And I have mentioned this to you before, and I think some of the audience may have caught this, but Gary himself had a great interest in cryptids and such things. And his daughter Heidi and her husband Eric are actually working on a set of D&D books that they're gameable. They're for the game table, but they explore some very real spooky legends around Lake Geneva. Have you ever gotten up there to the Lake Geneva?
No, I mean, I've been to North Dakota, South Dakota. I've been that far. Never been to Lake Geneva. No.
If you make it to Wisconsin, you owe it to yourself. You owe it to yourself to stop by. It's a lovely little town. No, I don't work for the Lake Geneva Chamber of Commerce. I promise. It's not a paid endorsement. I just like the little town. But Gary had a great interest in it. I almost wish that I could have arranged it to have Heidi and Eric on the show, and then we could have had a real open panel discussion about some of the things. She mentioned one, and its name escapes me, but Gary mocked up a costume of it and used that to scare a teenage friend of his. She was walking home down a farmer's field, and he jumped out in his quickly put together costume. But that was something that I mean, not just like, oh well, that's an interesting story. I mean, definitely, he was a believer. And I gotta take the Jack Burton from Big Trouble in Little China stance. A man would have to be some kind of fool to think that he'd seen everything there was in this world. You know?
There's a guy named Chad Lewis, and he writes about strange Wisconsin, and he would be a great guest. But actually, Wisconsin has some really terrible serial killers as well. You have Ed Gein, I think I'm saying that right. Yeah. Who kept all the body parts and everything, and the skulls and the rib cages. Like a lot of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and a lot of these horror movies are kind of borrowing from the actual crime scene of Ed Gein in Wisconsin, because he kept body parts in his house. If anybody doesn't know about him, look him up. But he's been the inspiration for, if there's any horror fans out there, he's been the inspiration for many, many horror movies throughout the years. So.
Oh yeah, it's definitely. And we'd actually, someone was asking me about this the other night on the show about. We had meandered a bit, as we tend to do here sometimes, and the question came up in our very active chat. And by the way, if you guys have any questions for Bob, please, I will do my best to catch them, and we will ask them. But somebody had asked, was Texas Chainsaw Massacre based on what Ed Gein had done? And to the best of my knowledge, and the various true crime type shows I've seen, somewhat.
Yes.
And I think it is, as you say, there's been some rather nasty pieces of work come out of that area, unfortunately. What was it?
But back to like RPG, like I talked to you about this before, but my sons and their friends, they create these whole worlds, right? They'll take a story. It could be a true crime story. It could be anything they create, any kind of world, and they create their own games. And I think, again, just reinforcing what you said, it's a way of preserving culture and history. I mean, you can take something very historical and make an RPG out of it. And I think that's brilliant. I think it's awesome. You can incorporate anything you want. In fact, they made a game out of their teachers and their classmates, kind of poking fun at their teachers and their classmates. And it was hilarious. And it was a game. And, they had nicknames for the annoying teachers that they hated and whatnot. But for all time, it kind of documents their experience in high school in an RPG game, which I think is absolutely fantastic. So
that's great. That's great.
yeah,
Of course, I guess these days, so I think you and I are probably roughly in that same kind of age bracket. You can consider us Gen X, for lack of a better term.
for sure.
But and I don't know when you were in your adolescence, early teens, were you a gamer at all?
Yeah, I did. I started like in 8th grade in high school playing D&D, just the really early stuff, and that's where I saw the Owlbear, and that's where I was exposed to some of that. And then I also like Choose Your Own Adventure books. Do you remember the Choose Your Own Adventure books?
Oh, absolutely. Love Choose Your Own
Yes, I
Adventure book.
read those all the time. So yeah, a little D&D, little Choose Your Own Adventure, kind of back and forth. And my friends would have a game night type thing upstairs at the old house. Yep, when I was like 13, 14. It was about
Right.
the late 80s, yeah.
Yeah, and it was kind of fun. It was a strange time with American pop culture. Although I was unfortunate enough to have gotten swept unwillingly up in it. I certainly didn't believe it myself, but of course, there's the whole satanic panic. Our
Yep.
kids are being dragged off to devil worship sessions.
Yep.
Where they pray to books called Dungeons and Dragons and all sorts of nonsense. And you take rational people who will tell you unquestionably that thing that went bump in the night was the house settling. That's just a movie. That's just a song on the radio. And these books from a tiny little company in Wisconsin are going to send you straight to hell.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing that was not a problem at the Antone household, yeah?
Well, not at our house, but when we started playing with Ouija boards, now that got a little interesting. So we got really heavily into Ouija boards.
Really?
And just really weird stuff happened. But
it is
ahead.
the season of weird stuff. I want to hear about this.
Yeah, so before we talk about the Ouija boards and what happened,
Okay.
I wanted to mention our local library, because I would go in to the North Bend Library, and I would always turn left, and I would go to this very specific section. It was unsolved mysteries. It was Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, witchcraft, devil work. It was just all the crazy, crazy stuff on this one section. And the librarian, I think my mother was like, can you direct him somewhere else? So the librarian goes, Bob, come over here. Like, don't look at those books. Look at these books over here, And so they were trying to steer me away from the occult section, because I was so obsessed with it. And I would just read for hours and hours and hours. I just loved that stuff. But it's from my grandfather. So, he told me those stories. He was obviously very religious. He wasn't into witchcraft and that kind of thing. But, that was part of the section that I was reading. So my sister and I, we convinced my mom to buy a Ouija board at a local antique store just down the road. And it was a used Ouija board. Now, I don't recommend buying a used Ouija board. I do not recommend that, because you don't know where that thing has been. You have no idea what kind of, who has used it and what they've done with it. And a lot of people know the potential, and I'm a believer. I mean, I've seen a lot of things. So I'm definitely not an atheist. I'm definitely not a non-believer in the supernatural. I definitely believe because of my life experiences. So we started to play with the Ouija board, my sister and I. And I remember the first night, this is very weird, and maybe some of you folks out there have had a similar experience. We brought the Ouija board home. It was still in the back of the car. And that night I had a kind of a sleep paralysis kind of episode, where you're pinned to your bed and you can't move, you're paralyzed. But I remember opening my eyes, and then I remember hearing like hundreds of voices whispering. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could hear all these voices whispering, and they were kind of coming from the back of the car where this Ouija board was, and they were swirling around my head, and I was pinned to the bed. And after that first week of messing around with it, things started to kind of happen in our house. Paranormal things started to occur, things that we couldn't explain. I remember I woke up one night and there was a chihuahua barking in my bedroom. Well, we don't have a chihuahua.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I guess if that's the worst thing to come out of a Ouija board, you can just give them a little boot across the room. Get out of here, you ghost chihuahua. I'm kidding. Yeah. They're lovely dogs.
It's all right.
People who like them, but anyway, so I have to relate this now. I want to be on record, and I've said this to the audience before, because this is of the same time frame, of course, and you're going to know as soon as I mention this. I don't think anything spookier than being in too much debt and having too much wine happened in Amityville, Long Island, back in 1974, 75. Okay. I think the Lutzes probably just realized that they were going to wind up underwater on that house, and they sat down with Jay Anson and they made up an admittedly very good ghost story. The Amityville Horror is a very, very good ghost story.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, when that first got popular in 76 or so, the book came out and it was a national sensation. My cousin, Kim, came up and stayed with us over the summer and read that damn book to us over the course of the I was 6 years old, Bob. I was 6 years old, and she's reading about a devil-possessed house. We lived in a giant old house that creaked and groaned and settled and popped. With that said, I am convinced, and for whatever value you folks out there in the audience, or Bob, you want to give this, I'm convinced there's something that was in that house that did not like children. At least it didn't like me. So again, that goes back to what I said earlier. A man would have to be some kind of fool to think that he'd seen everything there was in this world, because there was some spooky stuff. Maybe it's just my imagination. I'm not going back to Gadsden, Alabama, and walking in that house with an EVP and a proton pack or anything like that. But at the same time, I'm like you. I'm a believer in call it a non-denominational Christianity, and I think there are forces beyond what we can see, and there was certainly something there. So I don't, believe me, when you talk about seeing a chihuahua and hearing a sibilant chorus of voices, it's it is absolutely in the realm of possibility. And folks, just to let you know, in case you didn't see, I am getting your questions and comments. So we're going to get to some questions here in just a little bit. Fear not. In fact, Bob, do you want to field a few of these? Sure. Let it rip. All right. So we're going to kind of go from let's see. I think these are just comments. A nice one from Adam France. I did lose my Owlbear Mini. I had that song in my head every time I looked for it. I found it eventually. It's a good luck song. Well, that's awesome. Nice. Let's see. Death Angels is saying, Bat Squatch on Coast to Coast with Art Bell. Love from the High Desert Kingdom of Nye. Yeah. Right on. I think Dungeon Minister has already started working on a Bat Squatch. Let's see. I think Kabuki is asking the important questions. She asks, is Bat Squatch related to Bat Boy from the Weekly World News? Probably, yeah. Let's get into some Q&A. Michael Murtig, great tune, Bob. What made you pick the Owlbear? Yeah, it's just the early memories. We were talking about sitting around with my friends in 8th grade playing D&D, and just those early memories of playing the game. And that's the same room, in fact, where we would play with the Ouija board, maybe a few years later. And so there's definitely a connection. That room in particular, a lot of great memories, but a lot of unsettling as well.
And I wanted to write a song that basically represented kind of my childhood and then the culture of my neighborhood. Because if you listen to the lyrics and if you listen to this live performance, um, it's sort of like, it sounds like 60s psychedelic music, like early rock and roll. And it has this darkness that reminds me of North Bend Way and reminds me of a lot of my childhood memories. You have these dilapidated shops with mechanics, with this radio in the corner, and they're working on this rusty thing, and just the rain-soaked woods all around and the darkness. And nowadays we have a lot of homeless encampments along the trail here, along this road, the same road. So the new version, I told the guys, I said, think about all the homeless encampments along the trail, people that are just living in the woods, mentally ill, just crazy people, right? The other day, a dog ate human feces that had meth in it and became high. So that's really sad. But on a really creepy level, this Owlbear song, the live version, is talking about the sinister darkness of some of these communities that's just lurking. And over the summer, we had 2 people go missing the same day. Now, thankfully is kind of a loaded word. Thankfully, both of them died of other causes. They weren't abducted. They weren't like kidnapped. But our community out here, because of the homeless encampments and because of some of the darkness around here, they assume that people were kidnapping, folks. One of the guys was like 20 years old, but it turned out he just fell off the mountain. He fell off, 500 feet. He fell off the mountain. It was an accident, and the other guy jumped off the falls. So, Owlbear is my childhood and my culture of my neighborhood. It's part of us, and it, like you mentioned, the Satanic Panic, 80s. Oh, totally had that going on here in North Bend. The Satanic Panic, and people are like, "Oh, you play D&D," and like, "Oh my gosh," And then just everything I've shared with you about reading certain books and getting in trouble, that kind of thing. There you go.
All righty. Well, thank you for that answer. Getting into a little nuts and bolts with a couple of questions here. Kabuki says, what gauge guitar strings do you prefer?
What gauge? I like a medium gauge, and I play different styles. So I have a nylon string, also medium gauge, and then for steel, I usually do a medium. Now for my Epiphone, I use a nickel wound or flat wound. I use a flat wound, which is a vintage. It sounds like a vintage guitar from the 40s, 50s, 60s. The flat wound strings, they have that sound to them. So like, jazz, blues, country, early rock and roll. So when I put it through an amp with a little slap back, it has that little Johnny Cash, almost like the Animals sound, little early psychedelic, roots of psychedelic rock type thing. And yeah, so that's what I prefer.
Excellent. So, ancillary to that, what are you playing on the end credits version of Owlbear?
What am I playing on the? I'm playing a nylon. I'm actually playing a Spanish guitar, which is a Cordoba guitar. Yep.
Okay.
Nylon string.
I would not have guessed nylon strings on that. So Jack Photon comes at us with, what are you strumming pedals, including recording and other studio gear? Well, I think we kind of got part of that, but what about some of your other gear, Bob?
So I use, let's see, I have a Harbinger tower, which is great. It's got a subwoofer. It's 1,000 watts. You can stick that Harbinger tower behind the band, and it doesn't feedback very much if you know right where to put the microphone. The benefit of it is you plug a bass into it, like an upright bass, like a big old like Elvis type bass, and it just rumbles the floor. It's so powerful and beautiful. I got it at Guitar Center for like, I think it was on sale for $500 or $600. But boy, it was a great investment. Harbinger tower, 1,000 watts. And then the band basically can hear themselves. So you can hear the stage sound, the same as what the audience is hearing. And it eliminates the need for like a monitor. And it's great. And it's a nice thing for maybe a small intimate crowd, like maybe 100 people, 200 people. Any more than that, you might need two towers. But that's a great Harbinger tower, PA tower. That's great. And then as far as amps go, I use Line 6, which is a classic like 80s, 90s amp. line 6, and you can just dial it in, and you can just like blues, metal. You can it's all pre-programmed, and I know that you can get all that with your pedals, but I like the old like 90s like amplifiers, like early 2000s. Yeah, it's fun.
But does it go to 11? I think
It
that's
does.
it does go to 11. Good. Let's see. Getting back on the interstate for the extra normal, Graph Paper Architect asks, do you have anything, is there anything happening now or recently as far as the inexplicable?
Yeah, I'll tell you one, and I'm going to try to be very candid, because I don't, if the person, they might know I'm talking about them. So I'll be very careful. But this is very strange. So we were talking about Ouija boards earlier. Now, when my sister and I played for hours and hours and hours, and I believe it was damaging in a way, but a lot of people believe that it opens up a doorway. Like I would say that for the rest of my life, I have an awareness, or I have a feeling, like say if I go into a room and someone died there, like I'll pick it up right away. I'll feel it. In fact, we were called to a house in Duval once, and there was a man that like hung himself in the garage. And so without the woman telling us like where everything happened, I was like, okay, I can feel it over here, and she verified, everywhere that I pointed at was significant. So I'm very sensitive with that sort of thing. Well, the other day, someone came over here, and let's just put it this way, there were some extra guests hanging around them, and it was like I could see them, I described them, and the person, she looked at me like really, really shocked, and said it was right on the money, and she couldn't believe that I saw those things hanging around her shoulder. She described them as like ancestors, or something in her heritage, some kind of ancestors, great grandmother, something like that. But I saw them clear as a bell. I described them, boom, told her, and she couldn't believe it, and it kind of freaked her out. Now, this is something I deal with all the time. My wife is the same way. I guess I'm advertising it right now. Here's my card. No, I'm not advertising it. But, I don't call myself a psychic medium and then charge money and all that kind of stuff. That's not what I'm saying. I just have this natural thing that happens to me. It just happens, and I can control it. But it's not something I exploit in a financial way. It's just something that I live with. And yeah, my wife is the same way. We're sensitive. If you took us to a house and someone had committed a murder in that house, we would know the area where that murder happened. I could just, usually 9 out of 10 times, I can feel that. I can feel that place. One time we were called to a house, and without the person telling us anything, we told them the area, the spot, and we looked up above, and there was an attic opening, an attic portal where you climb up into the attic. And I just said, yeah, everything is right here. I can feel it right here. And she said, there was a murderer that was running from the law. He had just killed a bunch of people, and he ran into this house, and he climbed up in the attic, and he was hiding from the police in the attic. And I was like, wow, okay. And this was after we gave, our impression, our reading. This was a few years ago during COVID. So paranormal is everywhere. Yeah. And once you dabble with Ouija boards and you open up portals to other places, sure. I hope not hell. But anyway, once you open up the portals, things kind of come and go, and they visit and they talk to you, and, you can't really get rid of it for the rest of your life. There you go.
Wow. Okay. So Graph Paper Architect, I think that's got that. Christopher Sims, going back over to the Owlbear. Did an Owlbear ever remind you of totem poles? My mom gave me a small one as a kid.
Oh, no, I don't really think I knew what totem poles were at the time I didn't really have an understanding at that time. I mean, I'd seen them down in Seattle, but Owlbear just seemed like a fantasy creature, from Dungeons and Dragons. I never really associated with totem poles. Now,
and there it is.
Oh, okay. I love it. Oh, I love the Owlbear.
The owlbear is awesome. He's, I love the description of the owlbear, and he strikes me as being a very 1970s Midwest kind of cat. So they're intelligent. They're low intelligence, but intelligent. I figure if you moved into a neighborhood today with an owlbear, he'd be that guy wearing like a silk bomber Cleveland Browns jacket, always out working on his out-of-date car, yelling and cursing and
Yep.
raising hell and just because they're always hungry and always ill-tempered. Definitely a ski. Wisniewski or Lebowski or something like that. That's my take on the modern urban owlbear today.
He's got a big pecker too. He's got a big pecker. So
yes,
sorry.
Yeah, of course. No, that's quite all right.
I had to add that. Sorry.
We love the double entendre around here. Let's see. So Jack, Jack is gonna pick your brain on these technical details here. I heard Epiphany and Spanish guitar, hollow or solid bodies, and then some stuff about the band we'll get to in a second.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a Cordoba Spanish guitar. It's made in Spain. Very good. And then Epiphone Dot Series. Epiphone Dot Series is a great starter guitar for instance, jazz ensemble at Mount Si High School. They use the Epiphone Dot Series for jazz students, but it's also can be used for professional gigs, country, jazz, blues style. And then I have a Taylor guitar, a 114, which is a steel string, beautiful guitar. I tested maybe 20 to 30 Taylors, and I picked the very best sounding one that I loved the best. And it happened to be a 114 and very, affordable considering what you get. It's got this buttery, warm tone. Love the Taylor series. Beautiful guitars. They're, hand in hand with Yamaha and hand in hand with Gibson and those brands as well. But Taylor has its unique warm sound that's very Taylor-ish. I don't know. That's all I can say. As far as bands, we do have a regular schedule. The band name is Tinkham Road. Road, and you can find our music on Spotify. Not that I want to support Spotify, but hey, go ahead and look it on Spotify and Apple Music and everything. We're on YouTube. Tinkham Road. We have 2 albums, regular rotation, lots of great songs. We have many members of our band. So there are rotating members. So in the beginning there was 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we were like, well, I need a sub for Saturday night. So then there was 7, 8, 9, 10. We've had about 36 musicians rotating into our band, but we do have a core membership. We have, the original OGs of the band. Now, as far as gigs go, yes, they're paid, and usually they're wineries. So in the Pacific Northwest, a lot of wineries and places that sell and process wine, tap rooms, wineries. Those are the very typical gigs that you can get that pay pretty good, that pay nicely. We also do theaters. We did a Flying Saucer Festival on more than one occasion. The Flying Saucer Festival celebrating the history of UFOs in Washington State and Chehalis. And we were one of the bands that performed. We performed at theaters. And coffee houses, not so much. But events, yes, and paid for sure. Yep.
Yeah. So is Jeremy performing much with you guys these days, or?
Jeremy does occasionally. Yes. The reason he doesn't always is because he is the vice president of a corporation. He is a vice president of GitHub. He's very busy and he's traveling all the time. So whenever he can, he performs with us. We'd like him to perform more. I know Jeremy's probably watching and he probably heard that, which is good. I'm glad. But yeah, I understand he's got a lot of responsibility as a vice president. I mean, he's a busy man. He's got a lot of
don't let him off the hook. Don't let Jeremy off the hook. That slacker quit my Monday night AD&D game, so we can just
rip on him a little. Okay, let's rip on him.
Absolutely, Jeremy. Mr. I'm too busy. Oh, I have to be on a plane to Indonesia tomorrow morning. I can't stay up until 1:00 playing Advanced Dungeon. Fine, Jeremy. I know where your priorities lie. I see that now. Anyway, we'll just do without a dynamic 10th member at the table. Fine. But no, I love Jeremy to pieces.
Me too.
Yep. Why you and I got to know each other, which I can't complain about that at all. So that sounds like an amazing lineup of musicians you guys have worked with, and two albums there. Graph Paper says he found you guys on YouTube. That's awesome. Kabuki says, is it like the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones where they just have a guy on stage who dances? Any dancers on stage with Tinkham Road, Bob?
Sometimes, and it's funny because sometimes someone will come up and just kind of hump my leg, kind of like a dog. They'll just hump my leg, and then I let them finish, and I make sure they know they got to put a tip in my underwear before they're done, before they leave the stage. But yeah, that's how it's done. That's how I get my tips. I just allow people to hump my leg.
Should I be so blessed to see Tinkham Road live, I will remain a respectful distance back from the band. No leg humping from me. Jack is giving you the business here. So another question from him: types of music, all original, covers, mixed, live, improv. Now, Jeremy told me, I'm gonna jump in front of you real quick, that a lot of the stuff you guys do is folk music from around the turn of the century, the previous century, kids, not 99 to 2000, but 1899 to 1900.
Yeah, so if you think of like Seattle area regional culture and music, so we do a mixture. So we'll have a song that's from the Oregon Trail. The Oregon Trail, right? That was a cool video game too, the Oregon Trail game. I remember that from the 80s. That was awesome. And then we'll revamp it, and so it doesn't sound. The thing about it is we're not necessarily playing banjos and making it sound like it's 1857. We're taking the melody and we're revamping it in a modern way. And so there are layers of time, and that includes themes of the paranormal, themes of flying saucers, things that have happened around the Pacific Northwest, Mount Rainier. There are legends that we explore musically, and it's very open. There's not a lot of rules necessarily, except for to tell the story and to make it interesting and make it fun. And so some of the poetry and some of the lyrics and some of the songs, like they come from, like I said, 1889. Then some of them come from 1920. Some of them come from the 40s. Some are from the 60s. Some are brand new. We just wrote them yesterday. And the music is definitely, it's folk music. It's got folk music roots. But there's a lot of jazz musicians in the band. So there's so much free improvisation. And I don't mean like Grateful Dead, Fish type. I don't mean like a jam band. I mean more like David Lynch, avant-garde, surrealism, weirdness. Like where it'll be in the middle of a song and then suddenly you're like, what the fuck am I listening to? And then it goes back to a traditional song that everybody sings along to. Now, I've heard Wilco. There's a band called Wilco, and they're really great. And I've heard where they do like a Woody Guthrie, Woody Guthrie, This Land Is Your Land, and Roll on Columbia. And then I've heard what they do, which is kind of similar to what we do in a way, where in the middle of a song, like a traditional folk song, then they go into all this like madness and weird noise, and it sounds like a horror movie. And then they come back to the folk song. I love doing that kind of stuff and experimenting with sound. And different instruments. We have all kinds of instruments and like maybe genre bending, not gender bending, but genre bending. There we go. Yeah,
very important distinction.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, there you go, Jack. I gotta monitor these boards. People are like, man, how do you do it? Well, I got this audience hitting me with questions all the time, and I love it. So anything you guys have got for me or for Bob here in the next little bit, I know you can't stay the whole night. We're gonna have you on one night. We'll get a panel. I'll get Heidi Gygax on, and we'll kick back one night and crack open one or two and just whittle the night away. But you had actually the first time, which is the last time you were on the show. You actually had an absolutely beautiful song, which unfortunately, this is a new build studio PC from last time, so I don't have it on here. But you had a song about the Banshee song that absolutely that was a new piece, and that was amazing. I got chills from that. That's on the YouTube channel, right? Folks can hear it now if they want.
Yep. Yeah. YouTube, Tinkham Road. Mm-hmm.
Tinkham Road on YouTube. Definitely avail yourselves of that track. It is beautiful and it is heartbreaking, and I do recommend. But so let me see here. I wanted to get just a little bit more time in this before we got into that, but I have to if I didn't show this to you when you were on the show the first time, I'm showing it to you now, and this had to really ping your radar quite nicely, because I mentioned, of course, Gary, cryptid believer, cryptid fan, and looky here, which you have probably already seen. Of course, we have the Yeti in D&D right there in
awesome.
black and white. Some great art by David Sutherland. Of course, there's the Owlbear, and I think we could probably, and hopefully one day we can, is just maybe you and I just sit back and we have a show where we're going to go through some of those, and you can bring us some cryptid knowledge, like, oh, I didn't know that monster was from this legend or what have you. But we'll see. We'll see when we get there. But Graph Paper says, idea for you: Grognard got eaten by an owlbear. Filk of Grandma got run over by a reindeer. So,
brilliant. Okay.
If you guys are pitching it up there in public where everybody can hear it, if Bob takes it and runs with it, that's up to him. I'm not gonna. But you do have a little something here that I'm fixing to share. Let me see here. Now, as I said when I introduced the show, and we've talked on and on about it, we're all big fans around the Delver's Dungeon of the track Owlbear. I've been teasing these guys so much about this. They are on pins and needles. I guarantee you folks are going to come back and want to listen to this over and over again. But there is a kind of a mellower, sort of live, laid back version of Owlbear that you shared with me a couple of weeks ago, and we're gonna we're gonna play that track here in just a couple of minutes, and give you a minute to stretch your legs before, I know you've got your you've got your class you've got to do here shortly. But can we do that? Can we play the new Owlbear track for the fans? They've been chomping at the bit.
Absolutely. Do it. Right.
So let me see if I can do this here. Now, I try to bring the audio up because this is a live performance, guys. This is set this up for us, Bob. What venue is this at?
Yeah, so for about a decade now, we've been playing as a regular house band at Sigillo Cellars in Snoqualmie. It's downtown Snoqualmie, and we're every fourth Saturday of every month we show up and we put on a 3-hour show. And so this is the old historical location. It used to be a silent movie theater. Then it was town hall. It used to be a jail. It's got a lot of history. Beautiful building. Timber workers, timber union hall was there. But this is a clip from our regular once a month performance. This was the last show that we did just last month.
Okay, so I'm going to bring this up here, and like I said, guys, I have tried to get the audio as best I can. You know, it's coming off of a YouTube video, compressed down, being played through StreamYard, and then back through YouTube. So please do bear with us. I'm working on a budget here, folks. So we're gonna bring this up here.
Joe. Have you seen the creep driving by in his little green Jeep? And he smells like fish and brandy, and his rotten teeth look dandy. Take me to the show, I don't care fast or slow. We're dancing dicks, take me to the show. Take me to the show, I don't care fast or slow. From action flicks to dancing dicks, let's take me to the show. Okay. Did they give you the creeps a little bit? God, I hope it did.
That was great. That was fantastic. We had
Thanks.
so many great comments on that. I was trying to catch them all, everybody. Let's
Yeah.
see. We had Kabuki said nice solo, nice bluesy sound from graph paper, full chill. Christopher Sims says, Jack says, add a lead bass and some sinister synth sweeping in and out in crescendos. But a question also, he says, for shows, do you guys have any multimedia lighting rig or anything?
Occasionally we'll have multimedia. We did a show at a community center in West Seattle, and they did some live projection in the back. So when we were singing about UFOs, we had videos of like flying saucers behind us. So occasionally we'll have, if that's what you mean by multimedia, we'll have film and visuals going on. But I'd love to have more. Absolutely. You want to come to Seattle and help us out? You can, hook it up.
There you go, Jack. He's throwing down the gauntlet to you, man. But, no, that was absolutely fantastic sending, and I hope you guys out there in the audience loved it.
That's nice of you.
That's on the Tinkham Road YouTube channel, you guys. So if you for whatever reason hanging around here and listening to it isn't your thing, and Bob, I hope I did okay on the audio, trying to sweeten that up a little bit.
It was fine.
Yeah,
I liked it.
Basically, just wanted to kind of just level increase across it, So because
it would actually be great, like in the background during an RPG game, like if you just turn that on rotation and just have that spooky music, as sort of the storytelling. You're going into some kind of a dungeon or whatever. You know what I mean? It would work really well.
Oh yeah. I'll do that in games sometimes. I'll drop in some music in that. That's definitely going to go on rotation. I like that a lot. Good. Cool. Good stuff. So, I guess then that kind of brings us to the traditional interview zone. We're like, what's next? What's up at the next horizon, Bob, for you? Yeah.
So we're going to record a new album. We've got 2 down. We're going to do a third. Now, the third album is going to be a lot of train music, but also true crime. So murder ballads. There is something called a murder ballad, and in traditional American murder ballads, it was a way of reporting the news. So if someone killed their uncle or they killed their wife in a town, there would be a ballad written, and then that balladeer would travel town to town and sing the murder ballads. So we have some ballads written about murders and crimes that have occurred up here in the Seattle area. And then we also have train music and, a lot of surrealist and dark themes, mysterious, supernatural themes. So it's going to be our third album that's coming up. And in a few days, if you go on my YouTube channel, the solo channel it's Bob Antone. Just go to just type in my name, Bob Antone, on YouTube, and there's a solo channel. But that does have Tinkham Road clips on there. I'm going to be releasing a song called Wild Boars on the Mountain. Now, I'll tell you really quick before you go. This will be a minute or less, and then I'll let you guys go. But there was a guy named Bob, and you hear Bob. My name's Bob, but you hear Bob come up in the Owlbear song. Well, this song is about another Bob. His name was Bob Johnson. Now, Bob Johnson owned the North Bend Tavern, and he was a storyteller. And people would come in there looking for Sasquatch. And during the 1970s, everyone was looking for Sasquatch. They'd come to North Bend, they'd hear a story, they'd get a tip, and they'd end up at the Sure Shot. It was then called the North Bend Tavern. And Bob Johnson was the owner and the bartender, and he loved to egg them on. He used to make up stories, and he would get people believing anything. One of the most famous stories that I know of, he had a Polaroid picture behind the bar of a pig's head. He had a severed pig's head, and he put tusks in its mouth. So he took like deer antlers and made it look like a saber-toothed boar, a saber-toothed pig. And with a straight face, he would tell people, he would tell these Sasquatch hunters that there were wild boars on Mount Si. in that if they were to go out, they could probably find this very rare species of wild pig with saber-tooth pig, and they believed it. They believed it, and so the law enforcement that year arrested 12 hunters in full camouflage that were out. What were they doing? They were looking for the wild saber-tooth boars on Mount Si. So
Right.
I've got a song. It's going to be released here in just the next few days. It's all done. It's a beautiful song, but it will be released on my channel, Wild Boars on the Mountain, and it is a really good, fun song.
Well, you send me the link, and I'll make sure that that the audience here, if you guys are not already subscribed, and you should be to Bob's channel, that it gets out there. Never fear.
Right. Thank you so much.
Oh,
a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
You're quite welcome, man. You're quite welcome. And I this is your second time around, and I certainly hope you'll be back, because this is a lot of fun. Like I said, we need to do a panel show and get some other folks on here too, on this very interesting topic. Now, do you guys have like a tour coming up? Any tour dates you'd like to announce?
We don't really have a tour. We just play regionally here. Not really. So there's an Irish pub nearby that is one of our venues. So we play at an Irish pub on Snoqualmie Ridge, Sigillo Cellars, Orenda Winery. We don't really have any tours per se, but if we do, I'll let you know right away.
Please do. And so you guys, your stuff is on Spotify. Any physical media? Can folks buy CDs or vinyl or tapes?
Yeah, we have CDs. We have compact discs of both albums. And if anybody wants that, there's artwork. There's, in fact, some of the artwork that you used in the promo or the whatever the post is from the album cover from the album. So yeah, just get a hold of me, Bob Antone at hotmail.com. I can mail you a CD. If you want an old-fashioned compact disc, yeah, you can have one. I'll mail it to you.
Scribed from lasers, just like my grandpa did.
Yeah.
So did I get that right? Bob Antone at hotmail.com?
Yep.
Okay, great. So you guys reach out and get yourself some of this wonderful music from Bob. Any parting shots, any parting thoughts, any final words from you, sir? That sounded ominous. I'm sorry. Anything you'd like to say before you go on to do other things tonight?
All I got to say is always stay on the uphill side of the stump.
There you go, guys. Words of wisdom from Bob Antone. As for myself, all I've got to say to you folks is, of course, tune in tomorrow night when we are going to play some Call of Cthulhu and delve into the realms of H.P. Lovecraft. We're going to do a little live play with a round table of folks. Some creepy 1920s horror from the great Northeast. Bob, thank you so much for being here tonight. I really, really appreciate it. You'll be coming back. That's not a question. That's a statement. Yeah, you'll
absolutely
be coming back. So, folks, and of course, if you're just getting here or you're watching this, you can just click play again and catch the whole thing. So thank you again to you, Bob, so much for being here. This was a lot of fun. Thank you to our audience members and your great questions. And I think we're going to go ahead and slide on out of here, but not before, hopefully, we can answer the question, all of us together, of whether or not you have, in fact, seen our Owlbear. Peace. God bless you all. And I'll see you tomorrow night.
Have you seen my Owlbear? Here's to all the weirdos everywhere, in the woods and in the air. Have you seen my Owlbear? Should I shave off all my hair? Bobs are all around, some live in tunnels underground. Some are fat, some are rich, some are sleeping in a ditch. Can you ride a crooked horse without a saddle, way off course? Naked as a toad, all the way to Smoky Joe's. Have you seen the little creep driving fast in his little green Jeep. He smells like fish and brandy, but his rotten teeth look dandy. Take me to the show, I don't care if fast or slow. From action flicks to dancing dicks, just take me to the show.
Yeah.